Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Edward Blanton with The Real South Africa.
And I am Dr. Latasha Blanton, also with The Real South Africa.
We have an amazing group trip that you will be interested in. It's with the African Diaspora News Channel. A great YouTube channel gives you great information about what's going on in Africa. But we have a group trip featuring Phil Scott, the host.
And the trip is going to take place on March 16th through the 25th. It's going to go to Johannesburg and Cape Town, and It's in 2022. If you're interested in traveling, please send an email to info@therealsouthafrica.com.
And we'll see you here in sunny South Africa.
So what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with, Greg Marcel Dixon. Now, why this brother is important? This brother is challenging Jim Crow Clyburn out of South Carolina in the 6th District. Now, we talked about how he has openly said that, he want to remove qualified immunity from bills. We know he has been a person that's not been on the side of the Black community. He has been an establishment, corporate shield. Let's call it what it is. He got his money, and he don't really care nothing about Black people. We talked about many times that younger Black people need to run and remove people like Clyburn. So our brother here is registered and running against Clyburn, looking to gain his seat. So, brother Greg Marcel Dixon, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So I saw on Twitter you go by Marcel, correct?
Yes, I go by my middle name, Marcel.
Okay. So why did you want to run against Clyburn, Mr. Fish Fry Clyburn?
Because I realized that voters deserve more than just fried fish from the politicians they elect. I was never involved in politics because of my religious background. My grandmother and mother were Jehovah's Witnesses, and that was my religious background, and they preached neutrality. And that was always the one thing which I could not quite agree with. But once I came across the reparations movement, and I came across the data that shows just how dire it is for Black Americans, those Black Americans who are descendants of American slaves. I like to use the term freedmen. When I realized that James Clyburn, after nearly 30 years in power, has the 6th poorest district overall out of the 435 districts in the United States of America, and the 3rd poorest for child poverty, and his district is 60% Black. So the majority of the people who are living in poverty look like you and I realized that something had to be done.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Why do you think people kept voting for Clyburn all these years? Because some people say, okay, well, if he's doing so bad and he's like have been a failure, which he has, because it's based on the people in his district he's supposed to be representing. Why do you think people kept voting for him for the past 30 years?
So that's a myth that I want to clarify. It's a myth that I believed as well, because I'm also running on a platform of not just calling out Clyburn for his record and letting people know what I am going to do for them. I'm also running on a campaign of letting Black Americans know that we have been complicit in our own neglect. However, I wouldn't even say it's the majority of us. Clyburn's district has always had around 436 registered voters. And out of those registered voters, Clyburn first won his position in 1992. He has really exceeded more than 150 to 160,000 voters. He has not been primaried since 2002. The only time in his nearly 30-year career where he has exceeded 200,000 voters was 2012, when it was a presidential election. That's when Mr. Obama won his re-election, and Clyburn was not primaried, nor was he challenged in the general election. Outside of that, however, he has never had more than 200,000 of the more than 430,000 voters in his district. To answer your question, however, why do people keep voting for him? It's a complex response. One, We have older Black Americans in my district who have seen progress in their lives. Like my great-grandmother was a loyal Democratic voter. She saw her life go from living under Jim Crow and lynch mobs here in rural coastal South Carolina to being able to get pensions and have a well-paying job and pay for her daughter's extravagant wedding, my grandmother's wedding. She saw progress. When Black Americans are presented with the Democrats versus the Republicans, who are now the modern day Dixiecrats, not the Republicans of old, they don't want to lose the progress they have seen. That's one reason. Secondly, Clyburn has a lot of connections. That goes without saying. He has a lot of connections with the people who have powerful positions in this area. And three, and this is the primary reason, there's a lot of apathy here. I've been doing a lot of phone banking. I've called over 300 South Carolinians in the past 3 days. And you would think a lot of Black Americans, freedmen, will be excited to hear about someone fighting on a Black American reparations platform. But some of them have been so disappointed and disillusioned and disgusted with the government, they just don't believe it. Some say, I don't know about that, and they hang up on me. So apathy, connections, and fear is what keeps getting Clyburn elected.
Wow. So when you're presenting either reparations, you're presenting something new, they just tell you, I don't know about that, and just hang up on you. That is amazing. See, brother, this is what some of our frustrations are here on our platform. And of course, a lot of people in the audience are frustrated with. We have and according to the research, 50 and up is our problem. Not saying all, but those are the ones that's going to be against you more so than those that's under 50.
You know, I will not know until the general election in November 2022, November 8th, 2022. But my reception has actually been a little better among the 50 and older crowd, believe it or not. The crowd that is 50 or under 50, they tend to either just be completely disillusioned, and I cannot blame them. I am a part of that crowd. We have our grandparents, Black Americans now, own less homes and land, far less land than we did during the 1960s. I live with my mother because I could not afford to live on my own and to help my mother at the same time. And it will be a struggle for her to live on her own. So I decided to move in with my mother because I don't have the means to do both. My story is not unique. There are lots of people my age, college educated even, who are living with their parents. And in their cases, it's not always because they wanted to help their parents. It's their parents helping them. So I understand why people my age are disillusioned and kind of have a, yeah, right, I'll believe it when I see it attitude. But guess what? That's my job to show them. And all I say is stay tuned, because that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Okay, so you said that you're the district that you're in is one of the poorest districts, especially for Black Americans. Obviously, voting for Clyburn has been a failure. I'll just call it what it is. And I understand the apathy definitely with the younger people because look at the current administration. I mean, the current administration, sit up there and use George Floyd to get elected, and they use Trump as well to get elected. Oh, that Trump. Oh, this Trump. You got to get him out.
Anti-Blackness didn't exist before Trump, apparently. We were doing good before then, apparently.
Exactly. But, and if you're making some headway with the 50 and ups, awesome. But for the record, what is going to make you different than Clyburn? What are you going to say about, let's start with the Congressional Black Caucus, right? Let's say you elected. What are you going to do different in the Congressional Black Caucus? Because right now, from what we see, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, if it's going to continue to run like this, like basically a Congressional Immigrant and People of Color Caucus,
exactly,
disband it. But what are you would do if you would be elected?
Well, first of all, and I don't want to be graphic, but hell with the Congressional Black Caucus. They've already made it very clear for whom they stand, and it's apparently not us. And if they have a problem with my statement, how about they change my mind by showing me, we Black Americans who are descendants of those who were enslaved by the American government, show us where your main concern. What I plan to do the moment I get to Congress is start a reparations caucus, okay? Or a freedmen caucus to focus explicitly on us. And I will do that by means of the Freedmen's Bureau. And to answer the first part of your question, what makes me different from James Clyburn is that I am running on a message of reparations. My slogan right here, it says, repair Black America to fix America. Some people have said, well, how I know you ain't going to sell out when you get there? The way you know I'm not going to sell out, because I'm not selling out now. I've already had people confront me and say, well, you're a gay man. Why don't you put LGBTQ issues in your platform? I said, no. People have said, well, if you say you're against illegal immigration, as I do in my platform, people are going to call you xenophobic. I said, I've been calling names all my entire life. I'm a teacher. I taught elementary, high school, and middle school. If once you've taught middle school students, you've been called every name under the book. It don't bother me. People have said, well, what do you have besides reparations? I said reparations is the beginning, the middle, and the end. I have universal policies, but my platform is pure reparations. I have a Black agenda in my logo, so people can't be mistaken about what I'm running on. And ain't no way for me to hide it. I have always said the biggest mistake we make as Black American voters is that we think we have this mindset of, well, they have to do this in order to win the election. But once they get up to Congress, they're going to stand up for us. That's the mistake we were about to make for Jamie Harrison, who literally said when asked, what's your view on reparations? He said, what about poor white people? That's literally what that man said. And by the way, Jamie Harrison is a protege of Clyburn. No shocker there, right? People still had to believe that once he got to DC, he was going to become, Malcolm X, MLK, Fannie Lou Hamer. No, I say to people, the way a person runs is the way they're going to govern. Because once you run a certain way, you are now going to be trapped, especially as a Black politician, to stay governing that certain way. Because if you switch up, because you done sold out, the people that you sold out in order to get their vote, they're going to run you out. So I say, even if I fail, which I'm not, I'm going to stand on what it is that I'm standing for. And if I fail, at least I knew I stood up for something. I'm standing up on a reparations message. I'm blasting that loud and proud and clear.
Okay, so you say that what makes you different. So if you get, let's say you in talk about the CBC, awesome. But what do you feel Black Americans need now that Clyburn is not doing? Even your community in the 6th district, because they have a lot of needs. What would you address, quickly? Because people need to know that from, like, say, day one, this is what I'm going to start pushing. What would you push day one?
The primary thing I'm going to push is land. I am Gullah. We are sometimes called Geechee, Gullah, or Sea Island Creole. We are descendants of our enslaved African forefathers who were brought here first from the Congo, the Kingdom of Congo, then from southern Nigeria, from Senegambia, and a small percentage from the Ashanti, which is now Ghana, the Gold Coast. We are their descendants. And because we lived on sea islands and we lived in very marshy, swampy, subtropical terrain, malaria was very high here, snake bites, alligators, flooding. It was extremely hot. We had the knowledge of growing rice and indigo. It was the first thing that made the 13 colonies a viable place for people to settle. It made South Carolina one of the richest areas in the world. However, we've been on this land then since the 1600s, probably even further than that. I know I've been able to go back in my genealogy tree to the mid 1700s, but I know it's further than that. I've just hit a brick wall in regards to my genealogy work. But our land, our beautiful coastal property that we have had, I still have land on my property from the mid 1800s. We are losing it left and right. From the 1950s to now, Black Americans overall have lost 80% of their land. And if you ask any researcher or even look up the Department of Land Management, the Bureau of Land Management, and the federal government, South Carolina is ground zero for Black land laws. So the first thing I would do is put forth and sponsor a bill to reform heirs property, to provide Black Americans, freedmen, with the resources they need to find their relatives, okay, to go to probate court, and to get their full equity from their property. And that bill will also have the government, if the family has grown so large that the property cannot be proportioned evenly, then the government on their tab will find parcels of property in that same state, which is mostly in the South, the Southeast and the Gulf states, and give that person heirs property. That's the first thing I'll do. Secondly, I will put forth a push to amend the Constitution. There's been a lot of talk about police brutality and defund the police. My plan is a public safety plan. But one easy step that can be taken, because police officers who break the law definitely need to be held accountable and be held accountable to the full extent of the law, federally speaking. The Constitution says that an officer cannot knowingly deprive someone of their civil rights. Take out the word knowingly and replace it with recklessly, which says that an officer should know better. And right there, that changes the game. But the main thing is land, helping my people keep their land, get their land back, and get equity, which will automatically put billions and billions and billions of dollars in Black America.
Okay, so let me ask you a question here. You know, looking at your website and everything, you talked about a class protection status for, you know, Black Americans that descended from, you know, enslaved people by the American government. Now, we know they had the Asian hate crime bill, and they could have easily, the Congressional Black Caucus could easily fought for Black Americans to be part of that bill, and they did not. So
exactly,
what are you going to do to get Black Americans a, you know, protected status? Because according to the FBI, you have all the data that backs up why Black Americans need that particular status.
You know, the FBI came into existence and was called something different. I can't remember right now, in the 1950s. But we know Black Americans, Black people, have been here since the 1500s. If people consider the presence of the Spaniards, even the Black Spaniards that came, and then the people from the Iberian Peninsula and African continent that they enslaved, and they left them here, ironically, right here in my area in coastal South Carolina. But if we want to go from 1619 to now, Black Americans we haven't had a day in this here land, in this country, where we haven't had to deal with the worst type of hate crimes. And we are still far more likely to be on the receiving end of hate crimes than we are the perpetrator. Matter of fact, something like 70, 80% of hate crimes launched toward Asian Americans were done by mainly white men. Let the media tell it, they will make it seem like it was us, but it wasn't. The one thing I'm going to do that the Congressional Black Caucus, I don't want to say they failed to do it, they've chosen not to do it, is I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight for Black Americans, freedmen, because I want to be very clear about that. I'm going to fight for the Black Americans who are of a non-immigrant background first and foremost. Okay? I want all Black people to win unless they're coons, but I'm going to fight for my people to get the justice that this country owes them. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight for them. I'm going to push for legislation, but there's something else I need to mention. People have often asked me, well, what do you do if no one signs on to your bills and sponsors your bill? I'm going to do what a lot of politicians don't do, but it's damn near effective. I only have one vote when I get to Congress, but I'm going to have a large national platform. And what I'm going to do, if I put forth a bill, which I'm going to, for true reparations, I put forth a bill to give us special class protections as freedmen, descendants of the American slaves. I put forth a bill to repair heirs property. Every Black politician, and white ones too, especially if they're in a Democratic area that's reliably blue, they should be jumping over themselves to co-sponsor that bill with me. But if they do not, mark my word, I'm going to go to their districts, I'm going to go to their states, and I'm going to raise holy hell by letting their constituents know this person gets your votes. This is how bad we are doing. This is what I am trying to do, and they're not working for me. Accountability has been missing.
And listen, there's some things that I also going through here. What we just talking about based on what you're pushing, which actually is interesting here. So definitely I agree with because basically to make Medicare available as an option for all individuals to have a quality medical care, not just physical health but mental and emotional as well. Me personally, I believe in healthcare shouldn't be a privilege for those who have money. I believe it should be a right for all Americans. But one thing that I thought, and I actually agree with this, but I know this is going to be for some people in our community, unfortunately, who have been, hoodwinked and
I already
duped,
know what it is.
by the system, is when I saw here, it says ban all abortion with the exception of certain circumstances to protect the unborn children. Could you elaborate on why you put that down? Now, of course, I agree with it, but for people who want elaboration.
My mother and father conceived my oldest brother when they were 17 years old. Shortly thereafter, they conceived my second oldest brother and my father. They were teenagers. My father didn't feel he was ready to be a father to two children. Well, too damn bad, because I came shortly after. I mean, you're doing what you're doing. And my mother refused to do it. Had my mother acquiesced, my second oldest brother, who's a wonderful person, I'm not just saying it because he's my brother. He is truly a good man, a good human being with a kind heart, a gentle demeanor. And when I know we're used to hearing this, but if he had a sandwich and the next person next to him didn't have it, he would give them half of it. And he's done that before. He would not be here. I also did it based on research. I found that since the 1970s, an estimated 20 million Black babies have been aborted. I also researched further and found out that when abortion was first made legal, you had racist, anti-Black scumbags like George Wallace and Strom Thurmond who supported it. Why? Because they felt it would be a good tool to do what they had failed to do for all these centuries, and that's exterminate the Black population. I also found out that most Black women, like as with my father trying to encourage my mother to get an abortion, is usually because of economic hardships. If we had reparations, we would have, more than likely, outside of any medical complications with the mother's health, we would have 20 additional beautiful Black children alive right now. So I have realized that abortion, notice all the issues we have as Black Americans, where are all these white liberals, these white allies, these white feminist women? Where are they when Black Americans are getting gunned down by the police? Where are they when the report came out that Black men now have the shortest life expectancy in America and Black women after them? Where are they when Flint, Michigan, and Denmark, South Carolina, here in my district, don't have clean water? Where are they? We're going to the worst schools, and you got creosote poisoning in Houston, Texas, and Cancer Alley in Louisiana, and toxic soil and air right here in my district in Charleston, South Carolina. You notice how they only come out when they want to make sure we have a right to an abortion? People will say what they want to say, but this is the same country that did the Tuskegee medical experimentation, the radiation experimentation on us. And I strongly know that this country pushes abortion, these white liberals, as much as they can, as a way to depopulate the Black population. So, one, I want to see more Black children. I'm a teacher, and the majority of students I've taught are Black children, and Black children are wonderful. I hope to have some myself, okay? And I want our people to be able to give birth, not die from giving birth, as is in the case now, but be able to give birth. People who get all riled up about abortion, they need to get riled up about the fact that when Black women have children, they're 5 times more likely than a white woman to die. 5 times more likely than a white woman to die. More likely than women who live in developing nations like the Philippines. So that's what I will say to those people who get riled up about that.
Now, something else you have here, which is interesting, but I actually agree with that as well. It says reward police departments that have no outstanding racial disparities in their policing. Now, what do you mean by that?
Unfortunately, we know we live in the United States of America, and anti-blackness, I hate saying racism, I have a habit of saying that, anti-blackness is built into every institution in this country. And the public safety institution is no exception. I want you to look at reports of police officers that have actually stood up and done the right thing. There was a police officer who came across a recording of some of his fellow officers making anti-black jokes. There have been police officers who have framed about entire towns of black men in rural areas. And it was only because other police officers came forward and revealed it that it stopped. Unfortunately, we have to incentivize police precincts doing the right thing. I would love to live in a world when they just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. But we're not there yet. And unfortunately, when anyone stands up, I'm not getting paid a dime for this. If anything, I've gone into deep debt because of my campaign. But I feel it's worth it because even if I lose, which I'm not, Clyburn will see that someone from his district can rise up and hold him accountable. But a lot of people aren't just going to have this type of gumption to stand up and do something because it's right. But when you put money on the line, because another part of my platform is that police departments that show a disproportionate amount of arrests and violent encounters with Black Americans also going to lose their funding and also going to have the power of the federal government coming after them. So that's the other side of that coin. But we have to incentivize people doing the right thing because money, we know, is a motivator in this nation. Yes, anti-Blackness has made a lot of anti-Black bigots forego money, but it's to incentivize people to do the right thing. Because I can't be everywhere and I can't hold everyone accountable, but I can set the conditions to incentivize people to do the right things and then hopefully set a model for other precincts to do so as well.
Well, covering the news for the past, almost 10, going on 10 years, is that I believe that they should have, what just in the top of my head, a law enforcement whistleblower act. And basically what it, in my opinion, what it should be is to give, increased federal protections and also increased federal penalties of any law enforcement or any group that retaliates against a whistleblower that's in law enforcement, because that's what you have seen, whether it's local all the way up to state. Sometimes it can be federal. When somebody is being a whistleblower, then they're not protected as they should be protected. And I agree with you that money, also, definitely make the world go round. But also you said something else that I thought, let's say, well, that it seems like you're more in the middle than a left wing or even a right wing, because you said here, because some things you said earlier was more so like maybe what the Democrat talking points to a point, not you a talking point, but it just kind of like what they lean on. But this one they don't lean on is more right wing, which says eliminate all illegal immigration and find any employer that hires illegal immigrants. And that's something else I agree with. But maybe you could explain why you put that down.
Well, I want to say something before I respond. I can't be put in the box, as you can see. I can't be classified as far left, far right, a centrist. I'm definitely no damn centrist. I am a person who is doing what's best for Black America. So in some cases, going to, I guess, the far left is best. When it comes to immigration, I'm probably further right than some of these, I guess, Republicans who pretend to be against immigration until you find out that's who most of their staff is at their big mansions. But we'll talk about it some other time. I feel that America has no right. Like, how dare you try to do legislation for the estimated 11 million people in this country illegally before you do for there's 50 million Black Americans, give or take, according to the phony census. But the 40 million of that 50 million are freedmen. How dare you try to do anything for people who came into this country illegally and have not been in this country nearly as long as freedmen have, and you haven't done right by us? How about you try making us full citizens first, where we don't have the lowest wealth, the lowest income, the shortest lives, the worst schools, the highest rates of homelessness, and owning less homes and property than we did now then during the 1960s, but even when we was at our peak, it still wasn't enough. Immigration, there was a study done right before Obama took office, and it showed that illegal immigration actually did have a detrimental effect on the employment opportunities of especially young Black men. But I don't need no study to tell me what I've seen my entire life. I don't need no study to tell me what's common sense. In my district, there's a shortage of affordable quality housing, okay? Like seriously, when I used to have an apartment, when I had my own apartment, I was looking for an apartment to rent. It was very hard finding one, and then even harder finding one I could afford. It's even worse now because the population in my area has soared. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you bring in an extra 4,000 people and there's already a shortage, that shortage is going to be exacerbated. And being that we as Black Americans have the lowest wealth, we should have the most, we have the lowest, it's no surprise that we are going to be the ones most hurt by being able to access affordable quality housing. Is it any surprise why we have the highest rates of homelessness? No, it doesn't take a rocket scientist that when Black Americans, we have fought for equality. We ain't got it yet. We have fought for equity. We sure as hell haven't gotten that yet. To get paid in an equitable manner. We used to do all the construction jobs around here, lawn maintenance, carpentry, all of that in my area, which was once and still is one of the blackest areas, was done by Black Americans. It doesn't take a rocket scientist if you get an influx of a group that's competing for the same jobs. They offer to take less, and they even have people work for them who they don't have to pay because their payment is being in the country. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see how that is going to hurt the group that is at the bottom of the totem pole. And that's exactly why, if you look at the latest report, the wealth of Hispanics, that's the largest group demographic that makes up the group of illegal aliens, has grown the fastest, while Black Americans is at the bottom and is stagnating.
Okay,
now,
so
I want to real quick. Now, instead of me, however, going after the immigrants, go after the employers that hire them. Take away the incentive, and that will deal with that issue there. I also want to talk about in schools. Who has gone through educational neglect and been deprived of education more than we have, and violently slow? Yet, if you go to public schools, I'm a teacher, and I know this, millions and millions, billions of dollars actually, are spent in programs to help teach students. And a large percentage, we can't ask this, but look, I know, and we all know, are the children of illegal aliens, how to master the English language. I'm Gullah. Gullah is a language, but we were forced and shamed out of speaking our language. Where's the government program to make sure that people of my specific Freeman ethnicity get taught the language that we were shamed and ridiculed from speaking? Where's the government program to make sure that Black boys, 75%, are not reading nor doing math on grade level, get the help they need? It is none. But they use our data and they get these billions of dollars and they spend them on the children of illegal aliens. And some of those same children will then turn around and call our children words and slurs like the N-word and cotton picker. Not on my watch.
all right, and the last thing I want to talk to you about is the teachers, which you have here, by giving teachers a starting salary of at least $60,000 and restrict class sizes no more than 22. That is, very good, in my opinion, because teachers aren't paid enough. They're not at all. And so could you expound more on that? How would you, push for the teachers?
Well, it's the same way I'm going to accomplish reparations. The federal government spends almost $1 trillion more than China, most of Western Europe, and Russia combined on the military alone. That's not even talking about the money they spend in tax cuts for large corporations, people who make over $400,000. And I know I'm sounding like Bernie Sanders. I'm not a fan of his, but in that part, he's absolutely right. The federal government wants to talk about they spend that much on the military because they want to keep this a safe country. A country that is poorly educated is never going to be a safe country. The same way a country that is divided as we are, because Black Americans are to the bottom, freedmen, is never going to be a safe country. The government is going to help each state meet an equitable level of funding. In South Carolina, they have this thing called a minimally adequate education. Like, isn't that ridiculous? They say that each child should get a minimally adequate education. No, each child should get the highest quality education possible. But as it works in the United States of America, schools are funded by the property on land. So if you live in a very poor county like I do, and where I went to school in the lowest performing district in South Carolina, you are going to have less resources because you have less of a tax base from which to pull. But if you go to Beaufort County, which is next door to me, it is the richest county in South Carolina, you are going to have a large tax base from which to pull. That's not the way it should be. The government then will help each state develop a standard where each kid get the adequate qualities to get a high quality education. The states will put in what they can, and the government will pick up the slack. That will also include pay raises for teachers, also expanding infrastructure so we can add more classes, add more teachers, pay support staff as well. I didn't put everything in my platform, but support staff, janitors, cafeteria employees, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, they play an essential role as well. They will get their pay raise from the federal government, putting in the additional funds to meet that high quality benchmark as they should.
Yes, and with that being said, so tell people, just real quick, how they can get to you on social media, and also, how can people register to vote in South Carolina, especially in the 6th district?
Okay, well, my social media is Marcel. I wish there was a way I could put it on the screen. Is Marcel, the digit 4, and then the word Congress. That's Twitter, at Marcel for Congress. On Facebook, my page is facebook.com/Marcel for Congress. That's FOR. And my website is marcelforcongress.com. And the way you register to vote in South Carolina, period, you call your county elections office. You call the South Carolina Office of Elections, or you call the South Carolina voter office for your particular county. And either one of them will send you the application for you to register to vote. And I want to say that reparations should have been paid a long time ago. We had a form of it right here in my area for a short period of time. My family still has land from that short period of time. That form was not enough, but it was the closest thing we ever had to reparations. And I want to say, people say it's never going to happen. Stop saying that. That's cowardly. We were told abolition was never going to happen and slavery ended. We were told that Jim Crow would never end. And even though we're still going through its legacy, Jim Crow is over, at least from the legislative viewpoint. Reparations is the 3rd phase. It's what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was about to embark upon before he was assassinated. This is the 3rd phase. This is our part to play in this story of freedmen, Black American descendants of American slaves, rising up to fight for what is right, even when it's not easy in this country.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, make sure those of you in South Carolina, make sure you register to vote. Some of you in South Carolina watch our show. You could be in the 6th district. Register to vote, and now you have an option. Vote for our brother here, okay? Because Clyburn had about 30 years. As I said before, many of them need to go home and retire with their grandkids, okay, and live out their life. They done enough. Let the younger brothers and sisters come in that has the zeal and passion about what we need today. Understand? To what we need today. So make sure register to vote. And what we would like is to see Clyburn primary, where he's not even in the general election. That'll be a beautiful thing, right? So register to vote. And those of you go to his Twitter, you're going to ask him questions. He definitely will go back and forth with you on whatever question that you may have. So,
and can I say something really quick? I know you
go ahead,
have to, I want to say this. Clyburn, his age is a non-factor to me. If he was in government for 30 years and he was getting us good results, he can be as old as Methuselah. I wouldn't mind him staying. But to be in there that long and have the 6th poorest district and the 3rd poorest for child poverty out of 435, and then to write a reparations bill for Catawba Native Americans that were used to help hunt down our ancestors who tried to escape slavery, it's inexcusable. So whether he was 100 or 30, his record shows he has to go.
Well, that's a good point. But, I'm just saying my position. I just think that the younger people should be coming in with fresh ideas. And that's just, even in the right wing or whatever, they already got their youngsters already coming in now. And that's a big problem that we have in our community.
Yes.
We don't let the young brothers and sisters come in and bring in that new energy, the new zeal, and the focus on the problems that we have today. So, brother Marcel, we thank you for coming on the show today. We greatly appreciate it. And we hope you win your election.
Thank you. And I will. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Colonization never ended in the white supremacist system. And as we see today, the colonization is in the mind. Now, those who have been enslaved and those who have been colonized, we're still dealing with the remnants of that through the colonization of the mind. Pick up my book, 7 Steps to Decolonize the Mind, and we will help deprogram you from the colonization that was put upon you by generations and generations of white supremacy. You can pick it up today on Amazon.com.